everybody, this is David Snyder again, coming back to you with another exciting installment of ROI Secrets. Because our last conversation was so successful, I'm going to have another talk today with my good friend and colleague Steve Junqueiro, former president and chief operating officer of the Save Mart grocery chain. Steve will be talking about the qualities of real leaders, people who are able to create more leaders and create more engagement, quite frankly, inside of the companies that they work with by helping other people to become leaders. The main message is that real leaders create more leaders, not followers. So I would highly encourage anyone who is in the business of coaching, mentoring, and growing leaders inside of an organization to listen to every single word that Steve Junqueiro has to say. I really think you're going to enjoy this episode. And thanks for being here. Good morning, Steve Junqueiro.
Good morning, David. How are you?
Great. So here we are back with another great episode on leadership secrets with Steve Junqueiro. Steve, can you just give us a quick review on your career, like your former position, your last major CEO position, and what you're doing today?
Sure, David. I have been in the grocery industry for around 50 years now. I was the CEO and president of the Save Mart companies, my last position, and retired from that after 43 years and started a consulting company, Steve Junqueiro Associates, and have been working in that realm for the last 5 years, and just helping people by consulting, coaching, mentoring, and it's been fabulous.
Great. One, Steve, poisons. Tell us about the poisons that you've seen in corporate culture that make it next to impossible to develop a culture of real leadership.
You know, there are things that stick out and really become, problematic when trying to create a culture of leadership and engagement. And some of the poisons that arise are, one that really sticks out is what I call the arrival, meaning when a leader becomes a leader and believes he or she has arrived. And the truth of the matter is that's only just the beginning of being a leader when you have the responsibility. From that point on, it's how you conduct yourself and lead people that really creates your image of a leader and effectiveness. So once you arrive, it's really not true. You're just starting. Another key area that I think gets in the way of leaders is having a myopic or centric ego, meaning it's all about you as a leader, and forgetting that that's not it. It's about your team. It's about allowing everyone to do their job and do it great, and help them do that, and then the results come after that. And I think another one is being very dictatorial. Dictatorial, meaning you're acting like a dictator and believing that form of leadership is going to get the job done. It may for a very short term, but long term will not happen.
Great. So I think that is a very insightful look at some of the poisons that can be found inside of cultures that just don't work, no matter what you say, no matter what kind of pretty words that you use to try and put lipstick on a pig, as they might say. It just never works. So a lot of people have seen that. So then they will be asking, well, if I have those some of those poisons in place, some people do think that way or act that way. what can you do as a leader? What can you do to cure or get rid of some of those poisons if they're already in place, at least at some level?
Yeah. I think one of the most important things is to create a environment of teamwork. Um, Allow that to happen. Lead your team to understand teamwork and work as a team, and you as a leader create that environment where people understand, they see it, they feel it, and they actually excel in it. And in that, I think it's very important to foster what I call a team ego, meaning it's about the team. I always told my teams that I really want you guys to be a fanatic about your own team, respective teams and responsibilities, but I want you to be a maniac about the enterprise. And so understanding that we're all here trying to accomplish the same thing, we all have different responsibilities and jobs, but it's about the team and making sure that whatever it takes to have the team be successful, we individually as leaders and as specific business units do whatever we can to make the enterprise successful. So being a fanatic about your responsibilities, but being a maniac about making sure the enterprise is successful.
Well, I would like to do a slightly deeper dive on some of these points because I certainly think we have the time. A lot of people give lip service to the ideas that you're talking about, but they don't really do anything about them. That's the problem. And then on one end of the spectrum, you hear things that are just absurd. Like I heard the leader of a company advising people that it was nice to talk to your employees at least once a year for 10 minutes. And sometimes you may even want to give them a Christmas ham. And I just could not believe that those words, came out of someone's mouth in, this day and age. I was just, wow. So I think it's more than just giving someone a Christmas ham or talking to them for 5 minutes. I think they're probably expecting a little bit more than that.
Absolutely.
How much time do you have to spend with another leader who's under your care that you're mentoring or reports directly to you? How much time do you think that you need to spend with that person to share your infectious enthusiasm for becoming a customer service maniac? How much time does that take when you're mentoring a person who isn't quite doing what you want them to?
I believe it takes that leadership on a daily basis. So it's not only spending time with your specific leaders, individual leaders, but walking the talk yourself every day. And so it's really spending the time and the effort and the focus on a daily basis as a leader to really show your team what's expected and how to lead and how to conduct business.
If you were standing up in front of an audience and you of leaders, but team members across the board, just say you had 2,000 employees in front of you at a company meeting, and you had a mix of managers and leaders and C-suite people, but then other team members who were on the front lines, and it was an annual company gathering. Say it was around this time of the year, the holiday season, and you wanted to tell them that things were going to be different in 2023, or whatever the year happened to be. And you wanted to tell them what to expect and what you were going to hold your leaders accountable for, additional things that you're going to hold your leaders accountable for in 2023, because the buck stopped with you. You were the CEO, and you were going to raise the bar on what it meant to be a leader among your team members in the following year, what would you say to everyone to get them to say, Steve isn't joking, he understands it, he gets it, and we're going to try a little bit harder next year because now I believe that we're going to actually do something about the culture and the leadership around here. If you wanted to do that and you had 3,000 people looking at you, what would you say to them right now?
It's I've been in that situation and love that opportunity to address a large part of the company. And I would stress two things. One is that we must execute, and two, we must execute through teamwork. I've always preached that those who execute the best win. If you don't execute at a high level, you might do okay, but you won't win. So how do you execute at a high level? Well, it takes teamwork. And having the opportunity to talk to a large cross section of the company, it was always great to stress the point that we're all in this thing together, and it's going to take all of us to win. That we all have different responsibilities, different daily tasks, but no one job or responsibility is more important than the other, because it takes all of us to do our respective jobs and responsibilities to the best of our ability. When that happens, you get execution. And when that happens, you win. And I've always said that, a flawed plan with excellent execution will outperform a great or brilliant plan with poor execution. And it's just as simple as that. Those teams, those companies, those organizations that execute the best will win. But it takes teamwork, total teamwork throughout the organization to make that happen. Everyone doing their job to the best of their ability.
So you, as I understand it, have, become very well known, and you have a tremendous number of friends in the industry, we would say. I mean, your name is like everyone loves Steve Junqueiro. I mean, I would assume that is because you have a reputation for being a servant leader, right? So when these words come out of your mouth and you say it's all about teamwork, it's all about serving one another, it's all about being the hardest working person there, well, they know that you're a guy who has been a servant leader, who has been throughout his career one of the hardest working guys there. So when you say that, it has a ring of truth to it. It doesn't sound just like pretty words. They've actually seen you visibly being compassionate towards other people, right? Spending a lot of time mentoring other people, repeatedly emphasizing it's a team, 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 over and over and over again. But even though you were the CEO, doing so humbly, politely, with talking to people forever, what their slightest concerns were, and you have a reputation for that. And so that made a difference, right? So when you got up and said, guys, it's all about the team, it's not about our egos, then because you personified that, or the living personification for a lot of people, they believed you, right?
Yeah, it was clear. It was clear because they knew that it was so important for leaders, and myself, of course, included, to set the example. And through that type of coaching and mentoring throughout the organization, guess what? You start to see the results, and you see the results financially. But you also see the results in the growth of the people, the leaders, and the teams. And that's what's so gratifying, more than anything else, to see the elevation of the teamwork and the leadership of the company.
So the vibe that I've always picked up from you is that you just really like people. Is that a true statement? It just seems to me like you're a person who really, really, really likes people.
That's true. As I mentioned, I retired a few years ago, and laid low for about 6 months and found out quickly that it's not just a cliche, it's a fact. It's the people you miss. And so I've been thrilled to be back in the industry and working with friends, colleagues, and new acquaintances.
Okay, so I'm talking about things that I'm sure it's hard for you to talk about, being a very humble guy, but I can say you've been tremendously successful. And a lot of people in the retail and the grocery industry speak extremely highly of you. So I would just ask you, when you faced a problem or a difficulty in any given situation, whether it be a problem with the employee or a problem with the customer, and you were in the moment having the interaction, in that interaction with the customer who's having a problem or an employee who's having a problem, who came first? Was it you or was it the other person? Was it you or the employee who came first? Or was it you or the customer who came first? How did you react to those situations?
I think in each type of those situations, I think the initial response should be listening, listening to the customer's opinion or observation or complaint or whatever the situation is, but absolutely listen, because you need to know what is happening, but also you need to show that customer or employee that you're listening, that you care, and that you want to hear the situation and you want to fix it or do whatever you can to get a good solution for all parties. So I think the first thing to really focus on is the situation and listen to what it is.
I think you've just seized on a great psychological truth, and I think we are going to have to do a two-parter. So we'll just end part one with this, okay? Because I think you've hit the center of the bullseye on an issue. I was asking, whether like the customer would come first or the employee would always come first, but that's not how you answered it. I actually liked the way you answered it. You answered in terms of the initial impulse. And what you said very clearly was that if I was ever in a situation where there was a employee with a problem or a customer with a problem, my first initial impulse as a leader was to listen. Now, that's platinum. That's platinum advice, or a diamond level advice, whatever the most precious, metal or stone would be. That's very, very valuable, because I can say that whenever I've seen, or I think I've seen, very bad leadership, and I were to differentiate bad leadership from good leadership, what I've always seen is the hallmark trait of bad leadership was defensiveness as the first impulse.
Right.
So if defensiveness is the first impulse, and you see a person who has defensiveness as their first impulse, then you realize a couple of things. Probably they need to go through a massive amount of leadership training, or B, maybe the job's not for them. But if you see a person whose first impulse is that the way they're wired and they're doing it, their first impulse is to listen impartially, as you just said, then I think you have a leader on your hands and you have the potential to grow something. So I think you've just helped a lot of people around the world understand very quickly the primary thing. What's your first impulse? If your first impulse is to listen, then we're off to a good start.
I agree. Yep.
So let's break here today and just say thank you so much for showing up. We're going to pick right up, though, on part two. So anyone who's listening to this episode who wants to get the meat and the potatoes that will be coming from Steve's insights on barriers and solutions, please come back and join us for what will now be part two of this interview. Thanks, Steve, but don't go anywhere. Stay in that chair, because we're going to keep the camera rolling and we're going to capture part two.
Great. Thanks, Dave.